Good evening. Three more Welsh councils, Newport Talbot, Torfaen and the Vale of Glamorgan, will all face local COVID restrictions at 6 p.m. tomorrow. They join the growing list of areas in South Wales affected, with restrictions in Cardiff and Swansea now in place. Will Fife reports.
Another day, another set of lockdowns, this time filling in many of the remaining gaps in South Wales's patchwork, with Cardiff and Swansea entering lockdown, and then the breaking announcement this afternoon that Torfaen, the Vale of Glamorgan and Newport Talbot will be next.
Figures have continued to deteriorate in those three areas over the weekend. We signalled on Friday that we were keeping them under very close scrutiny. And the advice we've had is that now is the moment we need to act. It's not inevitable that it gets worse everywhere. That's why we've tried to act decisively.
The decision means that half of Wales's council areas will soon have a local lockdown in place, drawing an end to extended households and travel outside the area without reasonable excuse for all of those involved. The First Minister today also refused to rule out any Wales-wide lockdown in future. The newly announced areas will now have just over a day to prepare, while Cardiff and Swansea have been enjoying one final weekend without the enhanced measures. The warning from the Health Minister last week was that people should avoid the temptation for a final blowout in Wales's two biggest cities. Comments some bar owners say couldn't be further from the truth.
Last night was like a Sunday afternoon compared to what normal Saturdays should be. I think they were particularly unhelpful comments and inaccurate, I've got to say. We are in the sort of realms of £5 in a till for some businesses last week could mean the difference between surviving and not surviving.
For businesses and residents across so much of the most populated area of Wales, lockdown restrictions will now have to be something to get used to, at least for the foreseeable future.
Will Fife with that report there. Well, meanwhile, the Welsh Government says people living in lockdown areas shouldn't be using Cardiff Airport to go on holiday, saying it's not a legitimate reason for travel. They say those not in local lockdown or with a legitimate reason can continue to use the airport. The First Minister also said today Wales won't be in a position to regularly use all its testing capacity. He said more than 15,000 tests could be processed in Welsh NHS labs on an extraordinary day, but not currently on a day-to-day basis. Here's our political correspondent, James Williams.
Test, test, test. The World Health Organization was clear from the outset how governments should tackle COVID-19. But in the early months of the outbreak in Wales, attempts to increase testing capacity were thwarted. Numbers did, however, increase considerably by the start of July.
Today we can carry out 15,000 tests in Wales.
And yet, only around 2,000 to 3,000 tests are being processed in Welsh NHS labs on a regular basis.
What I'm trying to do is to distinguish between a heroic one-day effort, where the total capacity we have is 15,000. And if we needed an absolutely heroic effort, we could mobilise up to that. But you can't do that day after day.
Plaid Cymru says the government's initial claims around testing capacity have been misleading.
Testing capacity and testing delivery are two very, very important things, but they're different things. And we can't have government saying we can do this many tests when in actual fact they're only delivering a fifth of that.
There have been calls to use more of the Welsh NHS tests because of problems with the other testing system, the network of lighthouse labs set up by the UK government and run by private companies. It's where most of Wales's tests are processed, but huge backlogs have meant people have been unable to access tests. The First Minister told BBC Politics Wales this morning that his officials have confidence in the Lighthouse Lab system and that Wales will be able to access an extra 19,000 tests through this system by the start of November. Come winter, Wales is going to need all the tests it can get.
The weather forecast now, and it'll be a cold night with possible frost in rural areas. There'll be light rain tomorrow afternoon with skies clearing through the evening, with highs of around 18 Celsius. And that is Wales Today. We'll have the next updates tomorrow morning inside BBC Breakfast from around 6:25. Until then, bye-bye.